It was a quiet Sunday evening in Seattle when Clara James sat by her window, watching the rain trace lazy lines down the glass. The world outside felt cold, distant, and familiar all at once, much like her heart these past few years. She was used to the silence now. Her phone rarely buzzed, and when it did, it was usually just a work notification or a reminder from the grocery app. But that night, as the rain deepened and the city lights blurred through her window, her phone lit up with a name she hadn't seen in 5 years. Ethan, her older brother, the one she hadn't spoken to since that argument, the one that had split their family, like a crack running through old glass. For a moment, she thought it was a mistake. Maybe her eyes were tired. Maybe she was imagining it. But no, it was there. His name, glowing on the screen. She hesitated before opening it, her heart beating faster than she liked to admit. The message was short. Clara, I know it's been a long time, but I really need to talk to you. That single line carried 5 years of silence, guilt, and unanswered questions. Clara stared at it for a full minute before she let out a breath. She didn't realize she'd been holding. What could he possibly want now? Her mind rushed back to the last time they spoke, in their parents' living room, voices raised, tears unspoken. It was over something small, or maybe something big, depending on how you saw it. Words were said that couldn't be taken back, and since then, they had both disappeared into their own corners of life. Clara built a new one, a small apartment, a quiet job in marketing, and a few friends who never asked about family. But now, that message changed everything. She typed a reply, then deleted it, typed again, deleted again. Finally, she sent, "Hey, Ethan. I didn't expect to hear from you. Are you okay?" The reply came almost instantly. "I'm in town. Can we meet?" Clara's fingers froze on the screen. He was here. After all this time, something inside her, curiosity, maybe hope, pushed her to type back. "Okay. Tomorrow evening, the cafe on 5th and Maple." She hit send before she could talk herself out of it. The next day moved too slowly. At work, Clara tried to focus, but every email blurred into meaningless words. Her mind kept replaying old memories. Ethan teaching her how to ride a bike, how he used to protect her from bullies in high school, how proud he was when she graduated college. Then came the memory of that last fight, the way his eyes hardened when he said, "You always think you know better, Clara." Maybe this meeting would change that, or maybe it would open old wounds. Either way, she had to know. When she arrived at the cafe, the autumn air was cool, carrying the scent of rain and roasted coffee. Through the glass window, she saw him sitting there, older, quieter, but still her brother. For a second, she almost turned back, but something made her step inside. "Hey," she said softly. Ethan looked up, and for a brief moment, they just stared at each other. His smile was hesitant, almost fragile. "Clara," he said, his voice breaking just slightly, "you look the same." "So do you." She lied. He looked tired, as if life had been heavier on him than she'd imagined. They ordered coffee, talked about neutral things, first work, weather, the city, but beneath the small talk, a quiet tension sat between them, like an unspoken truth waiting to surface. Finally, Ethan sighed. "I didn't come here to pretend nothing happened. I came because I need to make things right." Clara looked down at her cup. "After 5 years, I know," he said. "I was stupid. I thought walking away would make it easier, but it didn't. It made everything worse." The sincerity in his voice caught her off guard. She wasn't ready for it, for the warmth that flickered in her chest. The reminder that despite everything, this was still her brother. She swallowed hard. "Why now, Ethan? Why reach out after all this time?" He hesitated, his gaze falling to the table. "Because there's something you need to know. Something about Mom?" Her heart skipped. "Mom? What about her?" Ethan looked up, eyes glistening. "She's been sick, Clara. She didn't want you to know. She thought you'd hate her for taking my side back then, but she's been asking for you." The words hit her like a wave. Clara's chest tightened. The cafe sounds fading into a dull hum. "Sick? How sick?" He didn't answer right away. That silence told her everything. Tears welled up in her eyes. "You should have told me sooner." "I know," Ethan whispered. "I messed up, but it's not too late. She wants to see you. Clara, please." Clara stared at him, her brother, who once felt like a stranger, now sitting in front of her with regret written all over his face. For the first time in years, she saw not the man who hurt her, but the boy who used to hold her hand when thunder scared her. Something in her heart softened. "Okay," she said quietly, "I'll see her." Ethan exhaled, relief flooding his face. "Thank you." But as they sat in silence, Clara noticed something else, something in his expression that didn't quite match relief. There was fear, a secret behind his eyes. And deep down, she knew this wasn't just about their mother. Something more was coming, something she wasn't prepared for. The next morning, Clara woke up before dawn. She hadn't slept much, her mind was a storm of memories, emotions, and questions she wasn't sure she wanted answered. Seattle's sky was still gray when she stood by her window, holding a mug of coffee that had already gone cold. The conversation with Ethan replayed in her mind, his nervous tone, the guilt in his eyes, and that one phrase that wouldn't stop echoing. "She's been sick, Clara." It felt unreal. Her mother, the strong, independent woman who'd built a life out of nothing, sick and asking for her. And yet, what haunted Clara more was the look Ethan had when he said it, like he wasn't telling her everything. By noon, she finally decided to call him. The phone rang twice before he answered. "Hey," he said softly. "Hey," she replied. "Can you tell me more about Mom? What's going on?" Ethan hesitated. "She's not doing great. It started last year. She didn't want anyone to make a big deal about it." "What is it, Ethan?" Clara pressed. He sighed. "It's her heart. The doctors said she needs surgery, but she's been putting it off. She wanted to see you first." Clara's hand tightened around the phone. "She wanted to see me before surgery." "Yeah, she's scared, Clara. But more than that, she regrets how things ended between us." A lump formed in her throat. The thought of her mother lying awake at night, regretting years of silence, broke something inside her. "I'll come," she whispered. "I'll come today." Ethan's voice brightened slightly. "Thank you. She'll be so happy." They decided to meet at their old family home on the outskirts of Tacoma, the place Clara had avoided for half a decade. As she drove there, the roads looked the same but felt completely different. The familiar turns, the trees lining the highway, even the small diner they used to stop at on family trips, everything carried echoes of what once was. When she reached the house, her heart pounded. The old white fence, the front porch with peeling paint, it was all frozen in time. Ethan was already outside, pacing nervously. He smiled when he saw her, but it was the kind of smile that hid too much. "You made it," he said, walking toward her. "Of course," she replied, her voice soft but tense. "Where's Mom?" "She's inside. She's resting right now." Before they went in, Ethan stopped her. "Clara, just be gentle. She's been waiting for this moment." Clara nodded and followed him in. The house smelled of lavender and old wood, exactly like she remembered. The walls were covered in framed photos, though one caught her attention immediately, a family picture from before everything fell apart. She looked younger, her arm around Ethan's shoulder, both of them smiling like nothing could ever break that bond. But life had. In the living room, she saw her mother, thinner, paler, but her eyes still held that same warmth. "Mom," Clara whispered. Her mother's head turned slowly, and when their eyes met, tears filled both their faces. "Clara," she breathed out. "You came." Clara rushed forward, kneeling beside the couch, taking her mother's frail hands into hers. "I'm here now, Mom. I'm sorry it took so long." Her mother smiled weakly. "No, sweetheart, I'm sorry. I should have never let the silence win." For a while, they just held each other, no words. Just years of love trying to mend what time had broken. Ethan stood back, watching quietly, but Clara noticed his face wasn't peaceful. It was troubled, restless. Something was still off. Later that evening, after her mother had gone to rest, Clara found Ethan outside by the porch, staring at the cloudy horizon. "She looks weaker than you said," Clara said softly. Ethan nodded. "Yeah, it's been bad lately. You should have called me sooner, Ethan." "I could've." He cut her off. "Clara, there's something else. Something I didn't tell you last night." She frowned. "What do you mean?" He ran a hand through his hair, his voice low. "It's not just about Mom's health. There's something she's been hiding. Something about Dad." Clara froze. "Dad, he's gone." "Ethan, what could there possibly be now?" He looked at her with eyes full of guilt. "That's the thing. He's not." Her heart stopped. "What?" Ethan swallowed hard, his voice breaking. "Mom never told you, but Dad's alive." The words hit her like thunder. The air around her seemed to disappear. "That's impossible," she whispered. "He died in that accident." "Ethan," he shook his head slowly. "That's what we were told. But Mom found out the truth a year later and she kept it from us." Clara took a step back, disbelief washing over her. Why would she do that? Why would she lie about something like that? Ethan's eyes filled with pain. Because he didn't want to be found. The silence that followed was heavy, crushing. Clara's voice trembled. "Where is he?" Ethan looked away. "That's what Mom wanted to tell you herself." The sound of the wind rustled through the old porch trees. Inside, the lights flickered softly, casting shadows on the walls of the home they once shared. Clara stood there, her mind spinning. First, her mother's illness. Now this secret. She didn't know whether to feel angry, heartbroken, or relieved. All she knew was that everything she believed about her family was about to change, and whatever her mother was hiding, it wasn't over yet. The next morning came with a soft drizzle, the kind that made the whole world feel quieter than it really was. Clara sat at the kitchen table of her childhood home, staring at a mug of untouched coffee. Across the room, her mother was still sleeping, her breathing slow and shallow. The night before had left her shaken. "Dad's alive." Those words wouldn't stop echoing in her mind. She wanted to believe Ethan was mistaken, that grief or guilt had twisted his memory, but something deep inside told her he wasn't lying. Ethan entered the kitchen quietly, his hair still damp from the rain outside. "You didn't sleep, did you?" Clara looked up at him. "How could I? You told me our father isn't dead." "Ethan, you can't just say that and go to bed." He sighed, rubbing the back of his neck. "I know, I shouldn't have dropped it on you like that, but you deserved to know the truth." Clara leaned forward, her eyes sharp with both fear and hope. "Then tell me everything. From the beginning." Ethan hesitated, then sat down across from her. "After the accident," he began slowly, "Mom got a call. Not right away, months later. It was someone from a small town in Oregon. They said a man matching Dad's description had been found alive but badly injured." Clara's hands trembled. "Why didn't she tell me?" "She was scared," Ethan said softly. "The man had memory loss. He didn't remember his name, his family, nothing. Mom went to see him, but when she did, he didn't recognize her. Not even a flicker. She came home broken." Clara's voice cracked. "And she just gave up." "She said he asked her not to come back." Ethan said. "He'd started a new life in that town. A new name, a new everything. She couldn't bear to tell us the truth, that he was alive but had chosen not to return." Clara pushed away from the table, pacing the kitchen as tears filled her eyes. "So she let me grieve a lie. For years, Clara. She thought she was protecting you. She wanted you to move on." Clara turned sharply, her voice trembling. "Move on from my own father. Ethan, do you even hear how that sounds?" Her brother lowered his gaze. "I hated it too. But when I found out last year, I confronted her. That's when she told me she'd kept tabs on him. Quietly, through someone she trusted." "Someone she trusted." Ethan nodded. "A woman named Marian. She runs a small bookstore down there. Mom used to send her letters." Clara's mind was spinning. Every part of her wanted to deny it, to believe this was some cruel misunderstanding, but something about Ethan's voice, the weight in his tone, made her believe him. "Where is he now?" she asked finally. "In a town called Silver Creek. It's about 3 hours from here." Clara swallowed hard, her voice barely a whisper. "And Mom knows." "She knows, and she wanted to tell you, but she got too weak." Clara stared out the window, watching raindrops slide down the glass. Her reflection looked like someone she barely recognized, a woman holding on to pieces of truth that were too sharp to touch. "I have to go," she said suddenly. Ethan blinked. "Go where?" "To Silver Creek. I have to see him with my own eyes." "Clara, wait." She grabbed her coat. "No, Ethan. I've lived half my life believing my father was dead. I deserve to know who he really is, or what's left of him." Ethan hesitated, torn between fear and love. "Then I'm coming with you." She paused, meeting his eyes. For the first time in years, they stood on the same side. "Fine," she said softly. "We leave tonight." The drive to Silver Creek was quiet. The rain had stopped, leaving behind a fog that curled around the highway like old memories. Halfway there, Clara broke the silence. "Do you think he remembers now?" Ethan shrugged. "I don't know, maybe. Or maybe he just doesn't want to?" That thought sank deep into her heart. The idea that her father might remember them and still choose not to come back. When they finally reached the small town, it felt like stepping into another world. Silver Creek was peaceful, small cottages, flower shops, people who smiled as if life had never been cruel to them. They parked near the bookstore with the faded blue sign, Marian's Pages. Inside, the air smelled of old paper and fresh coffee. A woman in her 60s looked up from behind the counter. Her kind eyes studied them. "Can I help you too?" she asked gently. Clara took a deep breath. "You're Marian, right? My name's Clara James. I think you knew my mother, Elise." The woman froze for a moment, then nodded slowly. Oh, Elise, yes, I know who you are. Ethan stepped closer. We need to find someone. A man. His name is Richard James. Marian's eyes softened with something between sadness and guilt. I was wondering when this day would come. Clara's pulse quickened. So he's here. Marian nodded quietly. Yes, he lives just down the road. But, Clara held her breath. What? He doesn't go by Richard anymore. And, he's not alone. Clara's voice faltered. What do you mean not alone? Marian hesitated, then said softly, he has a new family now. The air in the little bookstore grew heavy. Ethan took a step back, speechless. Clara's mind felt like it had shattered into 1,000 pieces. Her father, the man who'd once promised her the world, had started over, without them. She felt a mix of anger, heartbreak, and disbelief. Marian stepped closer, her voice kind but firm. He doesn't know you're coming. If you go to him, you'll have to be ready for whatever you find. Clara blinked away her tears. I've waited 5 years to find peace, Marian. I can handle the truth. But as she turned toward the door, her heart trembled with one haunting thought. What if seeing him didn't heal her? What if it broke her all over again? The wind in Silver Creek carried the scent of pine and rain-soaked earth as Clara and Ethan stood outside a small white house near the edge of town. It was quiet. Almost too quiet, the kind of stillness that feels like holding your breath before something life-changing. Clara's hands were trembling as she looked at the house. A picket fence, flower pots on the porch, curtains gently moving in the window. It looked peaceful, like a postcard from someone else's life. This is it, Ethan said softly. Marian said he lives here. Clara could barely speak. Her voice cracked as she whispered, Dad lives here. It didn't feel real. For years, her memories of him were frozen, a tall man with kind eyes and a warm laugh, holding her hand on summer evenings. Now, he was a stranger behind that door. Are you sure you want to do this? Ethan asked. Clara nodded, though her heart was pounding. I've spent too long not knowing. I have to. She walked up to the porch, every step feeling heavier than the last. When she raised her hand to knock, her fingers trembled, not from fear, but from something deeper, longing. The door opened. A man stood there, maybe in his late 50s. His hair was grayer, his face lined with age, but the moment Clara saw his eyes, soft brown, familiar, her breath caught. He looked at her politely, not recognizing her at all. Can I help you? Clara's voice faltered. Dad. The word slipped out before she could stop it. The man blinked, confused. I'm sorry. Tears welled up in her eyes. It's me, Clara, your daughter. Ethan stepped beside her, his voice steady but shaking. And I'm Ethan, your son. The man's expression froze, confusion, disbelief, and something else flickered across his face. He took a small step back, gripping the doorframe as if the ground beneath him had shifted. I think you're mistaken, he said quietly. My name is Richard Miller. Clara's voice broke. No, you're Richard James. You're our father. You were in an accident years ago. Momsy said, He held up a trembling hand. Please, stop. Behind him, a woman appeared, gentle, kind-faced, maybe a few years younger than him. She looked between them with concern. Richard, who are they? Clara could barely breathe. We're his children, she whispered. The woman's eyes softened, realization dawning. Oh my God. Richard turned toward her, his voice low and broken. I didn't think they'd ever find me. The silence that followed was unbearable. Finally, Clara spoke, her voice trembling. You remember us, don't you? Richard looked at her, eyes glistening. Bits and pieces, he said softly. Dreams, flashes of faces. I didn't know if they were real. Ethan's tone was heavier. So you just stayed here. You started a new life. Richard swallowed hard, guilt etched into every line on his face. When I woke up after the accident, I didn't know who I was. A family here took care of me. By the time my memory started to return, years had passed, and by then, I thought it was too late to go back. Clara shook her head, tears falling freely. Too late. We thought you were dead. Mom cried every night for years. Ethan blamed himself, and her voice broke. I stopped believing in anything. He reached out, his hand shaking. Clara, but she stepped back. You don't get to just say my name like that after vanishing from our lives. The woman, his new wife, Clara realized, stepped forward gently. Please, she's telling the truth. Richard, you need to talk to them. Richard looked between them, eyes full of pain. You have every right to hate me. I've hated myself for not coming back. But I built a life here. I got married again. I didn't know how to explain the man I used to be. Ethan's voice cracked. We weren't ghosts, Dad. We were your family. The moment hung heavy in the air. Clara turned away, wiping her tears. I don't even know why I came. Maybe I thought seeing you would fix something inside me. Richard's voice trembled. It can still be fixed. Clara, please. She looked back at him, her expression soft but broken. No, Dad. You can't fix 5 years of silence in one conversation. She took a deep breath. But you can do one thing. He nodded, desperate. Anything? Mom's sick, she said. She needs you. She doesn't have much time left. If there's any part of you that still remembers who you were, come see her before it's too late. Richard's face went pale. She's sick. Yes, Ethan said quietly. And she forgave you long before she told us the truth. Richard stood frozen, his emotions raw. Tell her I never stopped loving her. Clara shook her head gently. No, tell her yourself. The air around them seemed to hold its breath. Clara turned and started walking back toward the car, her heart breaking in ways she hadn't felt since she was a child. Ethan followed silently, glancing back once to see their father standing in the doorway, torn between two lives, and two kinds of love, as they drove away. The road blurred through Clara's tears. Ethan broke the silence after a long while. Do you think he'll come? Clara looked out the window, her voice barely above a whisper. I don't know, but if he doesn't, I'll still go back to Mom. She deserves peace, even if I don't. Ethan nodded slowly. You deserve it too, Clara. She didn't answer. The rain began again, soft and steady, as if the sky was crying for them. But deep down, Clara felt it. The storm wasn't over yet, because sometimes, love doesn't heal with truth alone. Sometimes, it takes loss to bring it back together. The rain had finally stopped when Clara and Ethan pulled into their mother's driveway that night. The house looked quiet under the cloudy sky, but the light in her bedroom window still burned softly, a sign she was awake. Waiting, Clara took a deep breath, her fingers clutching the steering wheel. Ethan, what if he doesn't come? Her brother looked at her with tired but hopeful eyes. Then we'll know we did everything we could. But deep down, Clara couldn't stop replaying her father's face, the disbelief, the guilt, the tears he tried to hide. She wanted to be angry, but another part of her, the little girl who used to wait by the window for him to come home, still hoped he would dot inside. Their mother, Elise, was sitting by the fireplace, wrapped in her old knitted blanket. Her smile appeared the moment she saw them. You're back, she whispered, her voice weak but warm. How was it? Clara hesitated. We found him, Mom. Elise's eyes glistened. You did? Ethan nodded. He's alive, Mom. He's living in Oregon. A different name, a different life. For a moment, silence filled the room. Then Elise exhaled, a tear slipping down her cheek. I always knew he was still out there. Clara knelt beside her. Why didn't you tell me, Mom? Why carry that alone? Elise smiled faintly. Because I didn't want you to hate him. Or me. Sometimes love means protecting someone from the truth until they're strong enough to face it. Clara shook her head gently, tears falling freely. But I could have helped you. Her mother touched her cheek softly. You did, sweetheart, by coming home. The hours drifted by quietly. They talked, laughed a little, cried a lot. It felt like pieces of their broken family were slowly finding their way back to one another. But as the clock neared midnight, headlights appeared outside the window. Clara's heart stopped. She stood up, her breath catching in her throat. Ethan looked out first, then turned back to her with a quiet nod. It's him. The front door opened. And there he was, Richard James, the man who'd been both a memory and a mystery for half their lives. His face was pale, his eyes red from tears and rain, but when he stepped into that house, it was as if the past itself had followed him inside. Elise froze, her frail hands trembling. Richard. He moved closer, his voice breaking. Elise, I didn't think you'd want to see me. She smiled faintly. I've wanted that every day. He fell to his knees beside her chair, taking her hands as if afraid they'd vanish. I'm sorry. For everything. For leaving. For forgetting. For not being the man you deserved. Her voice was soft, barely more than a whisper. You came back. That's all that matters now. Tears rolled down his face. He pressed his forehead to her hands, and for the first time in years, the silence between them turned into something peaceful. Clara and Ethan watched from across the room, both speechless, both broken in a different way. Clara finally whispered he remembered. Ethan nodded slowly. Yeah, maybe not everything, but enough. Then Elise turned her eyes toward them. Come here, my loves. They moved closer. Richard looked up, his voice shaking. "I don't deserve forgiveness, but I'll spend the rest of my life trying to earn it." Clara hesitated, then knelt beside him. "I don't know if I can forgive you yet," she said honestly, "but I can start trying." He looked at her, really looked, and for the first time, she saw her father again, the same warmth, the same quiet love, just buried under years of pain. "I'll take that," he whispered. That night, the four of them sat together by the fire, wrapped in old blankets and new hope. They talked until the sky began to lighten, not about the years they'd lost, but about the ones they still had left. At dawn, Elisa's breathing grew slow, peaceful. She looked at them one last time, her eyes full of love. "Don't let regret live longer than love," she murmured. Those were her last words before she closed her eyes, a smile still resting on her face. Clara broke into silent tears, her head on Ethan's shoulder. Richard held Elisa's hand until the warmth faded, his heart shattering and healing all at once. Days later, after the funeral, Clara walked along the lakeside near their home, the same place her parents used to take her when she was little. The wind was cool, the sky soft with sunset. Richard joined her quietly, keeping a respectful distance. "Your mom was right," he said gently. "Regret shouldn't live longer than love." Clara turned to him, her eyes red but calm. "She forgave you, Dad. Maybe I can too. Just not all at once." He nodded, tears shining in his eyes. "That's more than I deserve." She smiled faintly. "Maybe, but you're still my father, and that still means something." They stood there in silence, watching the last light of day fade across the water. For the first time in years, Clara felt peace, not because everything was perfect, but because they'd finally faced the truth. And in that truth, love had found its way home again. The end.